So, little live rambling today. I'm making this one because there's just so many of these damn sightings lately. So, we had this whole there was some UFO sighting up in the Great Lakes, like Lake Huron, and then we had the Chinese spy balloon, and then we had the mysterious Alaska UFO, which they're not saying anything about. Whereas the Chinese spy balloon, they had a story right away. And then there's just these smaller little sightings all over the place. And my brother, my whole family lives in Massachusetts. So my brother sent me a little article about there was some weird sighting this week in a town in kind of western Massachusetts, Belchertown, Massachusetts. So, and that's just one of many. People have always seen weird shit in the sky for all of human history, but there's a definite uptick lately, and these are different phenomenon. I think what we call ETs. They're basically they're like beings from other dimensions. They're not physical like us. That's a real thing that goes on, I believe, and I think religions have been talking about this forever, and just folklore has been talking about this. There are sort of interdimensional phenomenon that have always been going on, interacting with humans. And then I think a very large percentage of what we call UFOs, it's just aerospace companies, it's military industrial complex, it's craft that aerospace companies have built in order to sell it to the military or intelligence services. And especially when you want to talk about this UFO alien abduction phenomenon, I'm convinced that that is a black ops project. Basically to scare people, make people fear anything not from this earth. And it's been a cottage industry. The whole alien fear industry has been a cottage industry, going back to like the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits and all these goofy sci-fi movies, starting in like the 1950s. Even before that, you have War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells from, what was that? Late 1800s? Early 1900s? And it's a sci-fi novel about beings from Mars, physical beings from Mars invading the Earth. And, a little tangent about H.G. Wells. He did a lot to usher in the sci-fi genre. And he was an upper middle class. He was from what, Scotland. Upper middle class, Presbyterian, really despised people who were not university educated himself. Really despised anyone who wasn't a Protestant, who wasn't a Protestant with higher education, so-called higher education. Universities indoctrinate you. They teach you how to do a job. They don't make you some enlightened, broad-minded person. But anyway, he ushered in this genre, and he was part of a group called the Fabians. So the Fabians are a group of upper middle class and upper class. They're not really socialists. See, the problem with this term socialism is people take it seriously, and they think that systems of government exist in order to help people and to do the progress. Every system of government exists. It's a business plan. It's a business. There are no countries really. There are no governments. They're businesses. Governments are property managers. They're the hired managers for a business. So what happens is a group of very wealthy investors start a business, a system of government, and they hire managers because they don't want to chase around the employees all day. It's like people do this. People own businesses and they hire managers because they want to pursue other things, but the business is a great source of revenue. So they want to continue owning it, but they just have managers run it. Oldest trick in a book, right? This is even what religions do. Property management systems, business managers. It's like the government is like the business managers, and then I guess religion's kind of like human resources. They keep you in line and they pump up people's morale to keep them working. But they're all business managers. So anyway, H.G. Wells, these Fabian socialists, they were basically a group of upper middle class and upper class people. So basically aristocrats. And they started a think tank. The Fabian Society still exists in London. And they study psychology and they figure out how to control the minds of, what they perceive as their livestock, which is we the people. So, it doesn't matter that you vote. People in power really, they hate your guts. They hate you more when you support them. So he was part of this Fabian Society, these Fabian socialists, and over 100 years ago, they recognized the value of predictive programming through pop culture, through literature. So he wrote these novels like War of the Worlds and The Time Machine. And in The Time Machine, there's this future society where basically humanity has no balls. They're, just timid and afraid of everything. Was it the Eloi? And they're literal livestock for the Morlocks who eat them. So, that was the vision of the future that they wanted us to go into. Now, with War of the Worlds, they wanted us to think about alien invasions and fear them. So then after that, especially when motion picture industry started, you had more of these sci-fi movies with the scenario of alien invasions. In more modern times, you have Independence Day with Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum. Who else is in that? A few people. And then Prometheus. And then you get the whole Ancient Aliens thing where they basically, they say basically our ancestors were incapable of any sort of critical thinking, problem solving, any sort of sophistication. They're like, well, aliens must have done it. What they've done is they've warped the truth that, in ancient times, not the entire human population was in the Stone Age. You had some people in the Stone Age, you had some groups who were more sophisticated. It's like this today, you still have people living in the Stone Age. So, yeah, the whole Ancient Aliens thing, it gets us to fear this. It gets us to fear an alien invasion and to fear that aliens are going to come and, probe us, put anal probes in our butts, and eat us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Huge agenda behind this. And then you get testimonies from, I think it was her name, Carol Rosen, who was Werner von Braun, first head of NASA's secretary. And, she said as he was getting old, he told her, eventually the establishment will be done scaring us about communists, then they're going to scare us about terrorists, then they're going to scare us about aliens. So you had all this hype and all this interest generated about aliens. I think it's predictive programming. People want us to fear this. So Werner von Braun, even this first head of NASA, said there's going to be a fake alien invasion. Well, different whistleblowers, insiders, they've talked about this Project Bluebeam, where very convincing imagery can be actually projected into the sky. Now, there was an incidence of this. It was in Cuba. So from a submarine, the projection of the Virgin Mary was projected into the sky over Cuba. I guess the quality wasn't good and it wasn't convincing, but the idea was to undermine the Cuban people's obedience towards the Fidel Castro regime. So, didn't work out, but still, pretty impressive for the early 1960s. So God knows what is possible now. So, a lot of benefits for the establishment, the globalists potentially pulling one of these things. So I made a video, I don't know, a few months ago of this, basically a little shit, little squirrely shit, Paul Krugman, a socialist Keynesian economist in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Harvard is. And back in 2009, he's on the news. It's after the banking collapse and stock market collapse. And people are asking him, what do we do about this? And he said, well, a great scenario would be if an alien threat from outside this world arose and we had to build all kinds of new weapons and technology. And he goes on to say, he goes, well, even if turns out to be false, then oh well, we have a new economy. It doesn't matter that we lied to everybody. So this is what psychopaths do. The world has always been run by psychopaths since government and religion have existed. Psychopaths invented both of those institutions. So there'd be huge benefit to this because they could just kick the economic can down the road. They wouldn't have to fix the broken money system. They could just roll out their digital currency system without any questions. And what you would have is this false world peace where it would be made to look like we were being invaded, the planet was being invaded, and all the governments would say, oh, we have to come together to fight this now. Get your Needlecraft and get your boost and don't ask any questions and congratulations, you're all drafted into the army, So pulling this off would make it a lot easier for, the planet to be ruled. And what we're seeing right now with this whole scamdemic and the Needlecraft and Great Reset and all this shit, it's like a reincarnation of the Third Reich. But there's no country you can go to get away from it because what the globalists learned following World War II is you can't take the world over militarily and get everyone to accept it. So they had to be sneakier. They had to use economics. So every government in the world pretty much is a management company for this globalist business empire. But there is a way to get away from this reincarnation in Nazi Germany, and that's by don't get the Needlecraft and don't get boosted. And, when you don't do this, you're not fully living in that empire. So, because that's a thing that Nazi Germany was into. They were obsessed with creating a new type of human being. And one of the ways they were going to do this was injecting chemicals and injecting the V words. So that, Needlecraft back then. And one of the things when they were coming to power, the Nazis said that the Jews were ridden with diseases, and they needed needlecraft. They needed to be injected with the VACC INEs. So, none of this is anything new. So, we're basically, the needlecraft now is to take away free will and humanity, which religion has always been after. So this whole fake alien invasion they want to pull off in their humanity, and join the cause and do your bit in the war effort, and all that shit. So, if they try this thing, I don't know what it looks like. Is it a blue beam thing and it's just a hologram projected, or will they start flying some of these, these craft that aerospace companies have built? So, you've got the triangles, the tic tacs, the discs. What else? There's some cylindrical ones that fly around. If you have any access to night vision, in most parts of the country, you can see some of this stuff flying around. Go out on a clear night with your night vision and just look up at the sky. And these things make no noise. I'm convinced that the U.S., well, the weapons companies in the U.S. have had anti-gravity for a long time, and it's been sold to Department of Defense and CIA and other agencies. So I'm convinced anti-gravity's been around a while. So yeah, they could start flying these things around and start shooting the weapons on board at cities, and making the thing look very convincing. Who the hell knows? They might try this. They're not going to succeed. I mean, the globalists, the business owners, the investors, and then their business managers, the governments, and then their HR department, which is religion. They are psychopaths in a death spiral. They've demonstrated and proven to so many people that they're a bunch of psychopaths, that there's not a lot of trust left. There's about 30% of the population that actually believes what they're saying, and I think even that's dwindling. So they've got to do something fast. So that might be something they try. I think another scamdemic will be coming. Let me see here. Because Rahu and Ketu, the dragon's head, dragon's tail, nodes of the moon, that cause the eclipses, they're going to shift. You're going to have Ketu's going to go from Libra to Virgo. Virgo deals with healing, health, disease, sickness, medicines, poisons, needlecraft, so-called public health. What is that? It's probably about another year it's going to switch. So it's 2023. Yeah, say by 2025, we're going to see the next scamdemic. Little chapped here. It's possible that that one might be a little more real. This last scamdemic, I think it was like the Hong Kong flu in 1969. It was a real contagious, real harsh flu. There may have even been some radiation poisoning being released, because one of the symptoms of radiation poisoning is loss of smell and taste. Who knows? I don't have the know-how or the equipment to test any of this stuff. And I don't have a time machine to go back to, 2020, 2021. But I think it's pretty damn possible that, the next one might be maybe a little more real, a little more serious. I don't know. But it will be hyped up. It won't be as bad as they say. So, when the last scamdemic, it was started in Sagittarius. What was it? Yeah, low degrees of Sagittarius. Um, K2 was there. So that's in the constellation Ardra. Um, Crazy things always happen there every 18 and a half years. And then I went to Scorpio. K2 went to Scorpio. That's a place where, sort of death, destruction can happen, K2 and Scorpio. And then 'cause Scorpio is one of the rulers. I mean, K2 is one of the rulers of Scorpio along with Uranus and Mars. And then, I went to Libra and Scamdemic chilled out. The cases chilled out. But then it goes to Virgo. Yeah, we could see a resurgence of some sort of scamdemic and possibly new lockdowns in places where people are willing to go along with it. So even my own area I have to consider because, it is North Carolina, but there's a lot of Northerners, a lot of people on the left who they're going to believe whatever the television and the government say. A lot of right wingers do too, but the right wingers really didn't support lockdowns. So that's the concern. They're both ridiculous. So, yeah, a lot of things in the mix, but most importance to this video, this potential fake alien invasion. You even have, it looks like in government, there's even an interest to have kind of a extend the Patriot Act to ETs and aliens and to make them the terrorists. You've got this just ballless little turd. What's his name? Darren LaHood. He's a Republican member of the House of Reps in Illinois, and he was part of the committee that conducted the congressional hearings about UFOs. And he was asking the representatives from DOD and CIA, he said, is there any legal framework where we can prosecute civilians and non-governmental people who report UFO sightings and who talk about UFOs and aliens and ETs? So it's like they want to stifle any discussion among the population about this stuff. So that alone tells me they're cooking something. It's like how in the days after 9/11, the news would report that some Al Qaeda website had posted such and such a video or such and such a statement, but you weren't allowed to see it because the internet providers would block the website. That's what they said. Maybe the website didn't even exist. Maybe it was being blocked, but I mean, I'm convinced Al Qaeda was a CIA creature to the present day. They were created to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan, and they were always sponsored and run by them. So, yeah. I would say, just talk about this with people and make this concept part of your conversation, because the more people talk about it, the more inaccessible it becomes. And if enough people talk about it, then it won't even be attempted. But, and if something is attempted where, there's some Jesus hologram projected into the sky, don't fall for it. If you have religious fundamentalist people in your family or your circles, don't cave into their peer pressure, because life is not that fucking easy. We always have to use our discernment and our judgment. So Jesus just doesn't, you don't get off that easy. Jesus just doesn't appear in the fucking sky and be like, I am the son of Yahweh Jehovah, and come back And I'm definitely real and do as I say to the letter, or you will be punished. It's not that easy, okay? And here's the thing with these religious figures, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, any of the other gods and goddesses from all cultures, they're either all real or none of them are real. It's like it's infantile and it's narcissistic to think that one's own religious scripture and the starring characters in those stories are the only ones that are real. So they're either all real or none of them are real. And I think both are true. Think about that one. They're all real and yet none of them are real. So they're all definitely real, but then not real at the same time. So yeah, just be ready for anything. And when it happens, don't, I mean, I was going to say, don't panic. Don't shit your pants. Now, if the freaking globalists have, roll out this military technology that most people don't think is real, you get these soundless anti-gravity craft and they start shooting cities. Well, if you live in or near one of those cities, well, yeah, that's major cause for concern. You want to get the hell out of there as expediently as possible, right? But if it's not in your local area, and you're not under threat of being vaporized or something, then it's like, don't act like you're productive because you're freaking out and you're glued to the news and you start talking about, oh, the Satanists this and the Satanists and the Satanists and this is what the Satanists are doing today. That's not productive. Go about your life, make the plans you need to, and don't feed these people, because the more you freak out, you give them what they want. There's this great book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And he points out that the devil's an archetype. It's the negative force of energy in the universe, which is needed. This is what Satan is. It's the negative force. So it's the force that breaks things down. It holds you back. More importantly, it holds you back from doing the things you want to do, being your real self. So the force of optimism, which people have called God and expansion, and it's this force that seems to give us gifts in life, and then this force, Satan, which means the opposer. It's the force that holds you back and seems to take things away. It's the force that keeps us genuine, keeps us on our life path. So when you do things that you're not meant to do, that are not genuine soul desires, they blow up in your face. You get them taken away from you. No matter how pretty and picture perfect they look. So anyway, Napoleon Hill points out in the book Outwitting the Devil that the biggest supporters of this force people call Satan or the devil are the churches and the faithful, the Christian faithful, the Islamic faithful, because they're always fixating on the devil, on Satan. They're always fixating, and like any the biblical religions, I mean, they do have this, it's awesome that people have some sort of spiritual grounding, but there are toxic things in the mix. One of the toxic things is like the just blame Satan approach. So people are taught, something happens in your life that, made you sad, made you depressed, frightened you. Satan did it. Somebody misbehaves. Satan did it. So it's learned helplessness. It's taught us how to play the blame game. So really, it's, people who fixate on this whole Satan and devil archetype, they feed it energy because they're just obsessed with it. You can say you're a Bible believer all you want, but if you're always fixating on Satan, blaming Satan for everything, you're feeding energy to that force. It's like the book 1984. Every people reread it and reread it, and they're always talking, oh, do you know we're living in 1984? And it's like, well, yeah, that's where it's gotten to, because the American public, the Western world, people have been drunk, stoned, and high, or a combination thereof, every day since the late 60s, and they've been parked in front of the fucking television. So it's like, yeah, what do you think was going to happen? So it's like, yeah, we are living in a 1984 type of a dystopia here, but it can all crumble in a second. But if you're always rereading that book and always thinking about it and always talking about it, you're feeding it. It's the just blame Satan approach. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, you have to know the dangers, you have to know the potentials, but go about your life, do something that makes you happy, don't fixate on it. And it's like this potential, false alien invasion that these globalist players have been admitting that they would like to be able to pull off. Don't feed it energy. Know it's possible and go about your life. Now, there's one more thing. If this happens, I think this could have something to do with, you get the Ukraine war going on, and then you have these fucking idiots in the U.S. Department of Defense and in the U.S. government, Congress, White House. They're saying, oh, we might have to fight China and Russia on two fronts. That's fucking impossible. The U.S. military is so broken. The U.S. economy, the world economy is broken. The U.S. economy is so broken. It's not going to happen. They know they can't. They know it would destroy the country. They know it would probably destroy the world. And not going to happen. Now, Russia and China, those businesses they have ways where they can just cripple our grid and just leave us to wallow in our chaos and our filth. That's a possibility. But, this whole threat of world war can feed this whole fake alien invasion agenda, because even the countries who seem to be at war can actually be cooperating. They get things to a fever pitch where it looks like total world wars are going to break out. And then they start flying their state-of-the-art anti-gravity craft, which, yeah, a few of us know have existed for a long time, but most people don't. So the alien invasion would be the fake one would be a way to galvanize this false unity between these countries who acted like they were at war. These governments, business managers, who acted like their businesses or their countries were at war. So, yeah, it's possible they could try to pull this off. But they're failing miserably. It's like, shit-stained Bill Gates has even, he's come out and said, oh, my scamdemic Needlecraft campaign didn't work. So they're admitting failure. Klaus Schwab was admitting we're not going to reach our Great Reset goals. They might try to do something quickly. But in the midst of all this, we may have some natural phenomenon, some celestial, astronomical phenomenon happen in the skies above the planet. Some sort of a comet. I think most likely maybe some sort of solar event where the sun has some some really wild, gnarly coronal mass ejection it hasn't had in thousands of years. And this would be a solar phenomenon, it wouldn't be a figure of Jesus or the Virgin Mary in the sky. But a lot of people jumped to the conclusion that it was a second coming. And a natural phenomenon like that could really grab people's attention and derail the whole globalist agenda. I know these globalist shitbirds are not going to succeed. So there's a possibility that this natural, what they call a solar flash, when a solar wave happens, and the sun looks super crazy and spectacular. It's a possibility. No way to predict that kind of thing. But the sun is doing weird things. Drowned out there was like a 2-week Schumann resonance blackout. Schumann resonance is the frequency, the core of the Earth, projects up into the atmosphere. So when solar flares get very strong, the instruments get flooded and they can't detect the Earth's pulse. And usually it only happens for like a day, maybe two. Well, it happened for 2 weeks back in September. So, yeah, interesting possibilities here. Don't buy their bullshit. Don't feed them your fear and angst and terror. All right. That's it for now. See you later.